Hi, my name is Juan Rodriguez, and welcome to my environmental scan on the United Arab Emirates. First, I'm going to discuss a history of the country, then, we're going to discuss education with COVID. The United Arab Emirates is a country that is located in the eastern part of Arabian Peninsula, located by the coast of the Persian Gulf. Archaeologists have found artifacts that date back 125 years. Portugal became a protector of what is now the UAE in the 15th century. Britain took over the job in the mid 19th century. The UAE was formed as a response to the British government decision to no longer protect the territory, so that would later become the UAE. This decision was made because of the cost and lack of preparedness of the Royal Navy to defend these territories. The UAE, first composed of 6 emirates and was formed as a union in December 71. The seventh joined in 1972. The seven sheikdoms that form the UAE are Abu Dhabi, Ajman, Dubai, Fujairah, Ras Al Khaimah, Sharjah, and Al Quwan. As of 2020, 9.6 million people living in the UAE, with 20% being immigrants. Today, the UAE is a modern oil exporting country with a highly diversified economy, with Dubai in particular developing into a global hub for tourism, retail, and finance, home to the world's tallest building and the largest man-made seaport. The UAE is a federation of seven constituted monarchies. The government consists of the president, which is the head of state, who is always the ruler of Abu Dhabi, and the prime minister, head of the government, who is the ruler of Dubai. They also have a federated national council, which is the legislative branch, and the federal supreme court, which is the judicial branch. COVID-19 is an infectious disease pandemic that first appeared in Wuhan, China in December 2019. The outbreak was declared a public health emergency by the WHO in January 2020. It has spread all over the world and has affected over 35 million people and has led to over a million deaths. On January 29th, the UAE announced the first case of COVID 19. A family of four, a father, mother, daughter, and grandmother, arrived from Wuhan, China to the UAE on January 16th, and they sought treatment on January 23rd. The Global League table ranks UAE high for COVID-19 response. In May 2020, they released a report that showed that the UAE had over 1,000 infected people in their country, with their numbers rapidly growing. A study done by that showed that the UAE was the second most MENA country that was affected in fighting the virus. Universal health care was cited as one of the reasons. International attention was given to the policy of the UAE to adopt early measures to control the infection, including stringent monitoring and case touch recording and underlining facial masks. About 100 years ago, the UAE accepted that mandatory schooling is an instrument for stabilization of religious and cultural standards. School is also generally known as a way of preserving national and regional and economic social equality. Learning is often seen as an instrument to lead and change society for years to come. Schooling is mandatory for all kids aged 6 to 18 in Emirate public schools. Many subjects are taught in Arabic, but in the private, more expensive schools, subjects are taught primarily in English and other languages that the schools designate are needed. The Ministry of Education reported that the transition of a number of K-12 students and higher education institute in the UAE to distant learning system was made after many COVID-19 positive cases had been found during the large testing phase for educators and administrators. The ministry has taken many steps to make sure a smooth introduction for distant learning, pushed a 1 week remote preparation program for more than 25 government educators, plus over 9,200 private teachers and supervisors, coordinated with the university to start a free 24-hour online instructional program to give teachers and teaching assistants the ability to run classes online. Parents were instructed not to send the kids to school, and teacher and staff were instructed not to go to work if flu sign arises. Legal actions against any individual breaching these precautionary and protective measures were taken to the proper authorities. Official news will be followed rather than gossip. Ministry of Education also made the following decisions. Based on the results of exams students earned, a pass-fail grade was implemented rather than the regular letter number grade. This was done in case the student needed to withdraw from the school and thus would not affect the student's GPA. GPA was determined from the previous education year. The Minister of Training released a guidelines and instructional manual to make sure that the students conform with school values and programs by distance learning. The manual defines behavior and omissions which could be considered as student misbehavior. The report also lists stakeholders' positions and duties such as school board, parents, and advisors. Distance learning have raised the concern about the security of students' personal information. Now the students that are attending their schools and record numbers via online educational network and visual conferencing. Educational institutions in the UAE have implemented protection mechanisms and programs are set in place to safeguard learners and educators from cybercrimes. In terms of data retention regulations, many schools are uncertain what they're allowed to do. For example, in Qatar, the Personal Data Privacy Act is owned. Data relating to children are deemed to be citizens of a different kind who, without permission of the data privacy regulator, cannot be processed in Qatar. The UAE has so far recorded 78,849 novel coronavirus cases, including 399 deaths. When the students go back to school, temperature checks, face masks, and social distancing will apply. Welcome to the post-COVID world.